people? Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. We're nearly to the weekend. We're nearly to the 4th of July holiday. We're at the pinnacle of summer at this point, boys and girls. So we're close. Hopefully everybody's having a good week so far. It is close to an end. We got a summer weekend to look forward to, followed by the holiday of summer holidays, the 4th of July. So uh, hopefully everybody's got some fun plans, or however you're spending it. Hopefully it's enjoyable. I guess I'm just now realizing that I was originally planning to go live next Tuesday to finish off the quarterback rankings. If you guys were around on Tuesday, we did quarterbacks 1 through 12. You can check that out on the channel. Still happy to go live next Tuesday, even though it is a holiday, to go through quarterbacks 12 through 24. If for whatever reason I get an influx of people saying they're not around or not available, or they won't be tuning in on Tuesday, perhaps that gets pushed to Wednesday. Cross that bridge when we get to it. But nevertheless, hopefully everybody is able to take some time off from work coming up here with the holiday, and you can enjoy yourself however you see fit. Not too many news and notes around the NFL in the past couple of days. Of course, I talked about the Josh Jacobs situation prior to the quarterback rankings again on Tuesday. That live stream is time-stamped. It ran almost 2 hours, so lots of different chunks of information in there. The Josh Jacobs conversation was closer to the beginning of that stream. I guess that's the big evergreen conversation right now. Again, we're in the doldrums of the NFL offseason, so there's not exactly headlines every single day or even multiple days. Right now, I think the talking point that a lot of people are wrapped around is, of course, the running back market and running backs getting paid. We've got a disgruntled Josh Jacobs, a disgruntled Saquon Barkley. Austin Eckler has voiced frustrations this offseason as well, and it's probably only going to continue for at least the next couple of years until there's an opportunity for a new CBA, and then they got to actually work something out if they choose to. We'll see. That's in the future. For now, that is the topic of conversation that is kind of at the forefront of the NFL offseason. So I addressed that in I think, decent detail last stream. So feel free to go ahead and check that out. To that point, since it's been kind of quiet otherwise, we can kind of, at a much faster pace, jump right into today's rankings. You guys voted last stream on Tuesday. I gave everybody the option to choose between me finishing off quarterbacks 13 through 24 today, or pivoting to the top 12 rankings for the running backs, and y'all opted for the latter. So we're going to do both, but we're doing the running backs today. 1 through 12, we'll use half PPR scoring. Obviously, running backs more so than any other position. Well, other than quarterbacks, I guess. The other different formats for scoring can, alter the rankings a little bit. But I do believe at this point, half PPR or some form of PPR is the default scoring for most leagues. I don't think people play in the Stone Age standard league scoring anymore. And why would you? So we'll use half PPR scoring. I guess my caveat when it comes to running backs before I get started, because I've like everybody, I've got caveats for all of the positions. My caveat for quarterbacks, of course, is within reason, you favor elite rushing production over elite passing production. Obviously, there are different, the different tiers can influence that some way. You're going to take Joe Burrow over, lesser guys who maybe run a little bit better, but who are nowhere close to the level, the elite level passing that you expect from Cincinnati's offense. There are, of course, natural tier breaks with running backs. So with quarterbacks, obviously, you give a boost to the rushing floor. With running backs, year over year, you factor in the number of touches that they received from the previous season. We've seen significant workloads have a negative impact, a negative connotation on a running back the following year as a result of immediate, whether it's wear and tear or just increased likelihood of injury as a result of a heavy workload from the previous season. We've seen that before. That is most specifically geared toward those running backs, the select few who had previously been candidates for 400 touches in a season. We're getting away from that more and more in today's NFL. Just one single running back doesn't dominate touches that way, the way that they have in the past. It happens here and there. Like Josh Jacobs eclipsed 400 touches last year. Christian McCaffrey has eclipsed 400 touches in his career. We've seen it in the not so recent past. But like Najee Harris, I believe, did it as a rookie, eclipsed 400 touches. So that's the benchmark that I look at when I go into the next year, and I say to myself, all right, these guys are gonna be knocked down a peg, just because there's additional built-in concern from the heavy workload sustained from the prior season. I forgot that I didn't even mention Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's carried the ball 400 times for like 3 years in a row, although he's been a big-time outlier there. He's been the only one, though. Point being, it's difficult to reproduce significant volume in back-to-back seasons and subsequently continue to produce at a really high level year over year. That doesn't mean you can't have a successful overall prime as a running back, but it's difficult to do it specifically in back-to-back seasons. I bring all this up because obviously the names that are going to come up today most likely fit that bill of, all right, what was their workload last season, and how do we factor into the rankings this year? There are, of course, outliers. Derrick Henry being one of them, but also just in general, the scenario of targets and catches versus just straight up carries. You feel a little bit better coming off of a significant workload with a running back who a lot of those touches come in the result of carries, just because they are on average, catches are on average less of a physical toll than your average carry. The average target and catch doesn't have that little extra bit of wear and tear on the running back than just a straight up carry into a potential pile of bodies, right? So the elite pass catching running backs get a little bit of a break from that bias, I guess, so to speak. Not bias, but just, concern year over year. Can you sustain high level of production if, from one year to the next, you've got 700 touches to your name? That's a significant workload and a difficult one to sustain high-end production from. So that's what we take into consideration today when we do these rankings. It's not foolproof, of course, but it is an influencer. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. Again, top 12 quarterback rankings were on Tuesday. You can check that stream out if you missed it. I have that whole thing timestamped. And what's going on, Patrick? What's going on, CXK? Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Good to see y'all. Patrick, if you did your 1 through 12, I don't see them. I see 15 and 16. You wanted to finish your list. I don't see the first part of the list, unless you hadn't revealed it yet. But anyway, without further ado, my RB1 for the 2023 season was a guy that I touted as my overall RB1 last year. And this is a difficult thing to repeat. It doesn't happen a lot. Repeating as the overall RB1 is a rare feat, let alone being in the top 3. But at this point, this is a respect type of thing. You have to give this guy his flowers. He's in an excellent situation. Well, we don't know the quarterback yet, to be completely honest. We have an idea, but it's far from concrete for over the course of a 17-game season. But I'm going back to the well and ranking Christian McCaffrey as my overall RB1 for 2023. Uh, 329 total touches last year. So by his standard, for a guy who can absolutely eclipse 400 touches any given season, 329, I mean, you live with that. If you're somebody who whether you have McCaffrey in dynasty or you have a top 3 pick in redraft in one quarterback leagues, of course, um, you live with the fact that Christian McCaffrey finishes the 2023 season with 329 touches. Now, of course, that number's inflated a little bit because he also played playoff games, played 3 of them to be exact, and got a lot of work in those games as well. So, all told, that boosts his number up. But I'm just looking at the regular season now. Um, you're okay with the fact that it's under 400 touches when you're talking about a talent like Christian McCaffrey, and when so many of those touches again are targets and catches, they're not straight up carries. Um, 239 carries last year, and oh my god, what were the catches? Um, was it 75, 85? That's what it was. 85 total catches last year. So, real solid chunk of those touches are the less physical, so to speak, touches in the form of targets and catches. So you again, that's another caveat where it's like, all right, you don't worry about the workload as much when it comes to somebody like Christian McCaffrey. Excellent situation, excellent offense to be in, regardless of who the quarterback is. You have faith in Kyle Shanahan as a play caller. You have faith in the 49ers offense as a unit in its entirety. And with the draft capital that they invested in the trade to acquire Christian McCaffrey, you figure this is another window of what San Francisco surely believes is a win now window for them. They're gonna they're gonna ride Christian McCaffrey until the wheels fall off in an offense that accommodates running backs incredibly well. We've seen that over the years, and you're talking about one of the best, if not the best, running back in the NFL over the past few seasons. It's kind of a match made in heaven type of situation. So McCaffrey is my RB1 for 2023. The pedigree also speaks for itself. I don't think you guys need a whole lot of selling at this point on a talent like McCaffrey. It's difficult to repeat as overall RB1. You're also not always, I mean, you may disagree with this, but when you draft a running back, when you draft any player, top 3 overall at their position, if you draft Christian McCaffrey as the first running back off the board and he finishes as the RB4, that's not a bad thing. You still ended up with an incredibly safe player. You didn't get the value that maybe one or two other people did, depending on who finishes ahead of him in this hypothetical situation. But it's not a bad pick. So even if he doesn't finish his overall RB1, which is very difficult to do, if you draft him third overall and he has a top 5 season where he's rock solid consistently week over week and he's still giving you those high end RB1 performances here and there, you're not upset about the pick that you made. It's not number 1 overall, which is how you drafted him, but if he still finishes close to the top or near the top, you take it. You live with it. You know what you're getting with Christian McCaffrey at this point. I know I think 27 years old at this point, so he's getting close to that proverbial concern where his age becomes a factor because of career workload, career wear and tear. But didn't show any signs of concern last year. Was over seemingly the injuries that he suffered over the past couple of seasons that limited the number of games he had to play in. His past couple full seasons in Carolina. Nothing to be concerned about there. McCaffrey, overall RB1 for 2023, especially, obviously, in half and full PPR formats. Patrick, yeah, they're starting to come through in chunks. I don't know if you intended to send them. I don't know if you intended to send them all as one thing. I missed that, but I'm getting them now. If anybody else is around and wants to test using the chat, if I don't, hopefully there's no issues, but let me know if your message gets through. I'll make sure to engage with it and let you know that I saw it. but I'm starting to see them now. So I'm thinking there's no issue, or I'm hoping there's no issue. All right. We're all squared away. We're all good. McCaffrey, overall RB1 for 2023. Again, I think I've said enough there. Y'all know what you're getting with a guy like that in an offense like that. I understand having some pause about the quarterback situation, but we've seen this 49ers offense move the ball well year over year with lackluster, mediocre to average to somewhat decent, but like never great quarterback play. We've seen this offense have success running the ball. So put the best running back in that situation. I don't really care who the quarterback is. So we keep it moving. Number two. The number two overall running back for the 2023 season. Obviously, running backs more than any position, you're going to want to lean on the younger players, right? The guys who are freshest, the guys who have the freshest legs, the least amount of wear and tear on their bodies. And there's no less wear and tear for an NFL player than a rookie, right? Spoiler alert. Bijan Robinson is my number two overall running back over Austin Eckler for the 2023 season. It's a tough call because Austin Eckler has been so goddamn good. He's been so excellent, especially as a pass catcher. He's very much of the Christian McCaffrey ilk when it comes to the running back mold. Elite level pass catcher at the running back position. But I'm giving the nod to Bijan. One, because he's the best prospect to come out at the position basically since Saquon Barkley. And number two, he was drafted 8th overall. You draft a running back in the top 10, and Atlanta was pretty good running the football last year despite no good quarterback play. From Marcus Mariota to, 3 games of Desmond Ridder. He, put it together maybe, or pieced a couple of things together here and there a little bit, but there's no sample size where we're going to judge Desmond Ridder one way or another. The point is, for the majority of the season, the Atlanta Falcons were turning to Marcus Mariota at quarterback, and it was the worst quarterback play in the league by a country mile, and they still ran the ball pretty well. Now you add the best prospect at the position, not just this year, not just last year, but since Saquon Barkley, like 5 years ago. You add him to that offense that ran the ball very well, and he was the 8th overall pick. Bijan's going to should get 350 touches easily. Should easily eclipse. He should have the workload that Najee Harris had as a rookie. The difference is, we expect Bijan to be a lot better than Najee Harris, or at the very least, just straight up better. Maybe not a lot, but better. Better than Najee Harris. Actually, I'll say a lot better than Najee Harris. I like Najee this year for production purposes, but the all advanced metrics suggest he just hasn't been good. Proof is in the pudding. So he's going to get that workload, but he's going to be better. And it should be sizably better. Obviously, no sample. We have the Texas workload that we can go off of last year. I'm not even really concerned about that. We're talking about a 21-year-old rookie in an offense that should run the ball with the best of them in the NFL. I don't know if that necessarily translates to wins, but they're going to run the ball a ton. They did it successfully last year with abysmal quarterback play. There's no way Ridder can do any worse than Mariota. Point being, the ship should be somewhat stabilized for the Falcons offense from a passing perspective, running the ball. I got to imagine Bijan sees it 300 times with the upside of 50 catches, maybe like 290 and 60. He's going to get crazy workload. And keep in mind, whenever you're worried about the quarterback, you should probably actually be a little bit more invested in the running back, because the running back becomes a check down option for quarterbacks, for young quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks, developmental quarterbacks, right? Don't be scared off from a running back because you have questions about the quarterback. If anything, your questions about the quarterback should send you in the opposite direction. It should boost the running back for you. Like, we don't know if Ritter can throw the ball downfield, but I'm pretty sure he can chuck it down 2 yards to Bijan Robinson and just ask him to make a play in space. He should honestly probably be Bijan probably needs to be third in the pecking order for targets. Forget carries. We already know Atlanta's going to feed him the rock running the ball. But behind Drake London and Kyle Pitts, I mean, they signed Mac Hollins, who had a nice season for Vegas, but that was the addition to the offense. And they traded for Jonnu Smith. Like, come on. They should, I mean, and I say that as somebody who had previously liked Jonnu Smith, and then he went to New England and died. Um, we'll see if he comes, and now he's behind Kyle Pitts, but we'll see if he bounces back. That would be poetic, wouldn't it? If Jonnu Smith has a nice pass catching season his first year out of New England, backing up Kyle Pitts. I'm not even going to put that. You know what? Forget I even said it because I'm all aboard the Kyle Pitts bandwagon. But that's a conversation for another day. I am not jumping off that train. Regardless, Bijan Robinson should be third on the pecking order for targets, let alone what I expect to be the 270, 280, 290, potentially even 300 carries out of the backfield. The workload is damn near guaranteed when you go eighth overall to a team that very clearly wants to run the ball. Bijan Robinson, I would put him ahead of Austin Eckler. In half PPR drafts at this point, it's like, what wide receivers are you taking over him? And to answer the question, I mean, in best ball, I'll bounce back and forth. In redraft, there's a non-zero chance I take Bijan Robinson over guys like AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb. Just to secure that stud running back to hang my hat on. Stephon Diggs, I'd probably go Diggs just because he is the dude for Josh Allen. Elite level wide receiver one, catching passes from an elite level quarterback one. That might be the only situation that I say, okay, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts fit that conversation as well, but the difference between AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs is Devontae Smith is awesome and Gabe Davis isn't. So there's other good weapons in Philly to throw to. And then I put CeeDee Lamb in that territory for the Cowboys, but I don't put Dak Prescott in the same tier of Allen and Hurts. So there's two little caveats with AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb that would maybe slide Bijan ahead of them, but maybe not over Stephon Diggs. That's where the conversation is for me. It's not a matter of, oh, do you take Bijan at the 1-2 turn? No, because he's not going to be there. He's not going to be available. You're going to have to draft Bijan Robinson by if he's available in a 12-team, one quarterback, half PPR redraft league. If he's there at the 108, you better take him. You better take him. I believe Saquon was Saquon the RB2 his rookie season, and it was along the same wavelength. Saquon was a top 5 pick in redraft leagues his rookie year. By the time we got to the draft, maybe not top 5, but he was certainly top 8 or 9. He was regularly a top 8 or 9 pick, and I think he finished as like the RB2. I think that was behind Todd Gurley. So this has the same trajectory. Bijan has the same trajectory. Remember, Saquon got drafted by a not great Giants offense, but it didn't matter because Saquon was awesome. This Falcons offense might actually be a little bit better than that Giants offense. Top 10 pick, expect the volume. Bijan should be delivering a top 3 fantasy performance at the position this year. Theo, Crumply Heads, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Um, CMC 1, B John 2. I can't imagine there's a ton. I mean, if you want to put Austin Eckler up there, that's fine. Um, I'm not going to fight that too hard, but at this point, I don't really think there's much farther to go here. To that point, my RB3 is Austin Eckler. If I'm saying, oh, put Bijan over Austin Eckler, then by the nature of the beast, by default, I do have him as my RB3. I will say though, I don't have any shares of Austin Eckler, and that could change if I have the 109 and Bijan is gone in a redraft league. Okay, fine. Because in season long redraft leagues, I'm way more likely to prioritize a stud running back than a stud receiver to hang my hat on. Just because there's ridiculous talent depth at wide receiver that you want to snatch up in best ball. But when you can work the waiver wire week over week in season long, you can do that with wide receiver. I'd rather roll the dice in a redraft league to hang my hat on with a stud running back. So I might be more likely to take Austin Eckler in redraft, but I have maybe one or two shares out of like 75 plus drafts of Austin Eckler. I just don't have that many shares of him because I'm opting for the wide receivers in that part of the draft because there's guys like Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Nick Chubb available in the middle of the second round. So that's where I can take A.J. Brown. I can take C.D. Lamb. And I often do. But again, Eckler's a guy at this point, you just got to give him his flowers. A career high 107 catches last year is outstanding. It's also tough to expect that he duplicates those numbers. 204 carries for 915 yards on the ground. 107 catches for another 700 plus yards. I mean, that's a fantasy gold mine without question. 311 total touches, for the 2022 season, not including the playoff game that they played. So workload, not a super big concern. As far as it's not close to the 400 touch threshold where you really start to worry. In an excellent offense attached to Justin Herbert, attached to Kellen Moore. Again, I talked at length about why I like why I like Justin Herbert, and why a big reason behind that is because they hired Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. Dallas running backs had plenty of success fantasy-wise with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, so no reason to believe that Austin Eckler can't continue to play at a high level. Had durability issues in 2019 and 2020, but he has erased that the past couple of seasons, playing, I think, 33 of a possible 34 games in 2021 and 2022. So, been a positive bill of health for Austin Eckler the past couple of years, which is great. Will it happen again in 2023 for the third straight year? That's a tough thing for a running back to accomplish. It's not impossible. But at this stage of the game, where Austin Eckler is entering his age 28 season, with, almost 1,300 some odd career touches, it's fair to start wondering, are we in the danger zone as far as how frequently is Austin Eckler going to need to miss any time? So it's like it almost doesn't seem fair. Because I have it's a respect thing for Austin Eckler. He's ranked third overall. Obviously, you're thrilled to get him in plenty of situations. I just admittedly don't have him in a lot of areas. That could change in redraft when I do prefer to get a stud running back early, and I'll worry about wide receiver later slash over the course of the season on the waiver wire. Um, but in best ball, man, I prioritize those wide receivers um, because you have to start three of them. And when you can't work the waiver wire, you want to make sure you have seven, maybe eight options to turn to, and you want at least two of them to be really strong. Not that you don't want obviously strong receiver play if you can get it in redraft leagues, but in season long, what I when you can play matchups week to week, that's when I'm more likely to be like, all right, give me the bulletproof running back, um, and I'll play favorable matchups with my wide receiver three or even two if I have to. Can't play that game in best ball, which is why I don't have many Austin Eckler shares. I could see having more Austin Eckler shares in redraft leagues than in best ball leagues. That makes a ton of sense. And then in that scenario where you're up, half PPR, it's the 109 or maybe even the 110, and you're between, again, in redraft, not best ball, and you're between Eckler and AJ Brown or Eckler and CD Lamb, Eckler and Garrett Wilson. Um, that's a scenario where I can see taking Austin Eckler. The other thing we have to keep in mind with Austin Eckler is he saw a ton of check down work uh, last year for two reasons. One, Justin Herbert suffered, was it bruised or even broken ribs week 2 of the season early on. So he was dealing with pain management with his ribs. So I think it was a little bit more difficult for him to push the ball down the field last year. So he settled for the check down a lot. 107 catches would confirm plenty of check down opportunities for Austin Eckler. So obviously that's not going to carry over into this year. And the other thing is there were injuries to the other guys on the offense. Keenan Allen missed a lot of time last year. Mike Williams missed a solid chunk of time last year. I don't think that offense was ever fully healthy at any one point until what? Like outside of week 1, I don't think the whole offense was healthy again until like week 13 or 14. It was difficult for those guys to stay out on the field there, but Eckler was the lone exception to that, so he got all the volume he could handle. Can he sustain that year over year next year? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. That being said, Austin Eckler has earned his flowers. He deserves being drafted in the first round. I'm more likely to do it at the end of the first round in a redraft league. Just the proof is in the pudding based on my best ball shares. I'm unlikely to draft Austin Eckler you know, maybe I'll do it at the 1-2 turn if I have like the 112 and the 201. But if I've got the 108, if I've got the 107, if I've got the 109, I'm going Stephon Diggs, I'm going AJ Brown, I'm going CD Lamb, or if it's between Bijan and Austin Eckler, I'm taking Bijan. So I just don't have that many shares of him. That being said, he's worthy of a first round pick in the range of the 109, 110 in half PPR for season long redraft leagues. So that's the top three: Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Austin Eckler. What's going on, Sam? Good to see you, man. Appreciate appreciate the thoughts. Yeah, do have some new intro music for a couple new videos. The two most recent videos that I put out. Did a little rebranding over the past couple of weeks. Shout out to Fortune West Music for the help there. So that'll continue to roll out with other videos moving forward. Which can include, I'll take the weekend to slice up the talking points I had for each quarterback yesterday in the live stream, and also I can do the same for this segment as well for each running back. My running back 4 is Jonathan Taylor. Now, this is the guy that I'm drafting. This is the dude that I have everywhere. Or, well, I say everywhere. It feels like more. I have him in, I think, at least a quarter, not a quarter, like 20%, a fifth of my best ball teams, which was a high number. 20% exposure to a player is a fair amount. That's significantly you're invested in that one player. Here's the thing. I know Taylor disappointed last year. He suffered from injuries. The offense went in the absolute toilet. Um, Matt Ryan proved to be cooked. The backup quarterbacks they had were not the answer. The offensive line was kind of a shell of itself. The Colts season fell apart last year. And with the injuries that Taylor picked up, kind of eliminated any reason for him to get rushed back, because by the time he was probably feeling better or feeling healthy, their season was done. It was in the toilet. It was over. Bad season for Taylor last year. After being drafted in a lot of areas as the overall RB1. Now he's available at an ADP of Underdog Fantasy around like 15. I don't remember seeing a slide like that for a guy, even factoring in what happened to him last year, right? It wasn't a good year for Taylor because of injuries and, poor performance from the Colts offense as a whole. But he's still only like 23 or 24 years old. He's healthy now. It's not like he suffered a torn ACL, right? The injuries that he sustained last year are not long-term concerns. They're not long-term issues year over year. He's still only 24. The Colts should be a lot better on offense. Even if Anthony Richardson is just out there taking his lumps and learning, and the offense sputters here and there, it can't be much worse from what Matt Ryan gave them last year and Sam Ellinger, and whoever else they trotted out. They had Nick Foles for a couple games. Well, shout out Nick Foles, Eagles legend. But on the whole, abysmal quarterback play for the Colts last year led to a bad offense. It can't be much worse this year, working in a rookie with the upside that Anthony Richardson presents. Yeah, there's going to be growing pains. We all expect that with quarterbacks, with rookie quarterbacks. They should lean on Taylor to that effect, to that point. Now his ADP is down in the middle of the second round. I lost track of the number of best balls that I have done thus far this year, where I was getting him at 17, 18, 19. I got him at pick 20 at least once. You're out of your mind if you're going to let me take Jonathan Taylor at pick 20 overall. I'm not giving up on a 24-year-old who was the overall RB1 just 2 years ago and was getting drafted as the overall RB1 last year. That just got hamstrung by some injuries, no pun intended, and a bad offense that should be at least a little bit better this year. Or even if they're bad, at least they're bad trending in the right direction, right? You're going to let me have Jonathan Taylor in the middle of the second round? That's the running back that I'm taking all day long. That's why I often find myself passing on Austin Eckler if I have a pick from the 105 to the 110. It's almost like, why wouldn't I take a wide receiver here? Because I'm pretty sure they're gonna let Jonathan Taylor get to me in the middle of the second round. And he's not a zero. He's not a zero catching the ball either. He's not, he's not Christian McCaffrey. He's not Austin Eckler. But I mean, look at the rest of that Colts offense. I mean, you have Michael Pittman, who projects to be um, obviously the team's wide receiver one. Jury's out on if he's just a wide receiver one in the NFL in general, but he's clearly the best wide receiver on the Colts offense. And then you have some intriguing names. Alec Pierce, second year player. You figure he takes a step forward. We like him. They got a ragtag crew of tight ends. They got I don't even know if they still have Mo Alley Cox, but obviously they have Jelani Woods. They drafted Josh Downs. I guess they still have Zach Moss as a backup in the running in the backfield. I feel like I'm missing somebody. It's Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Jelani Woods, Josh Downs. They let Paris Campbell walk to the Giants. And then in the backfield, it's Taylor and Zach Moss. Is there a running back I'm forgetting about? The point is, Jonathan Taylor, is he going to be second on this team in targets? He's going to at least be third. Deion Jackson. Okay. I mean, that's right. Sorry, Deion Jackson. Who has an ADP, I think, south of like 220. This backfield runs through Jonathan Taylor. A significant portion of this Colts offense runs through Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. You might see Anthony Richardson vulture production away, right? There's going to be more designed runs for Anthony Richardson. So that takes work away from Jonathan Taylor. That doesn't mean he can't finish as a top 3 running back. When you factor in cost, he is I guess he is my most valuable, like, top flight running back relative to where you can get him, and the likelihood that you can get him, because middle of the second round is easily attainable for anybody with the 105 or later. So Jonathan Taylor is my RB4. I have the arrow trending up on him. I think the upside with Taylor is excellent when you factor in cost and expected workload. The workload concerns from last year are obviously not there because he missed significant time due to injuries. Jonathan Taylor, I expect a nice bounce back season for him. I'm taking him in the middle of the second round all day long, and every opportunity I can get. Jonathan Taylor is my RB4. RB5. This one I grappled with and just came to the decision that at least today, right now, I'm going to take the guy who I have no concerns about from the perspective of a contract dispute. All things equal, I would have Saquon Barkley at 5, but I can't put him there until I know with 100% certainty that he's going to play week 1. He's not going to hold out into the regular season. I don't think that's going to happen, but how many people said that same exact thing about Le'Veon Bell back in 2019, or it was 2018 with the Pittsburgh Steelers? It was only 5 years ago. I don't think that's going to happen. Saquon has been on record saying he's not trying to reset the running back market. So I feel like between him and Josh Jacobs, as far as disgruntled running backs looking to get paid, I guess if Saquon is telling the truth about that, which no reason to believe he isn't, then I feel like him and the Giants are more likely to figure something out, to come to an agreement, to come to terms prior to the season. But because that's not set in stone and definitive as of today, I can't put him at number 5. I have Nick Chubb as my number 5 overall running back for the 2023 season. Probably the best pure runner of the football in the NFL. Uh, Chubb is in a situation where the offense should be better. You have a full, normal, regular offseason for Deshaun Watson to work his way back into the offense, develop a rapport, get into a groove with his playmakers, with his offensive line, all that good stuff. All of these little things, these little intangibles, help to boost the potential that the offense is better than it was a year ago. They let Kareem Hunt walk. His contract ended. They have so far chosen not to re-sign him. They also let Dearness Johnson walk in free agency. We're pretty much down in that backfield to Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford. That's pretty much what it's down to. Could the Browns sign another player? Yeah, I guess maybe. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. Talking about you're talking about the best pure runner of the football in the NFL. 300 carries last year, 302 to be specific. 1,525 rushing yards is excellent. He's not again, and like Taylor, Chubb isn't known as a pass catcher, but he's not a zero at the as a pass catcher. He caught caught 27 balls last year, second highest in his career. He had 36 back in 2019. So you're not banking on more than 25 catches from Chubb in a season, but again, he's not a zero in that department. Now I look at the Browns pass catchers as a whole, and I think to myself, all right, I'm not sure how much work is available for Nick Chubb in the passing game, because obviously you still have got Amari Cooper. You add Elijah Moore. You still have Donovan Peoples-Jones. And for what it's worth, you drafted Cedric Tillman. And you have David Njoku. So, yes, Kareem Hunt is out of the picture. So maybe that stabilizes Nick Chubb's targets, but I wouldn't expect them to go significantly up just because Kareem Hunt is gone. I think there are other pieces in this receiving game that will keep Chubb kind of safely where he has been. Anywhere from 20 to 25 catches over the course of the season is a reasonable expectation. So obviously, if you get 2 catches a game from Nick Chubb, you're sleeping just fine at night. You feel just fine. Browns have been a good rushing offense over the past couple of years. Nick Chubb, probably all by himself, has a lot to do with that. All the advanced metrics, advanced analytics are in his favor as far as what he brings to the table from a pure runner perspective. He's explosive, big time playmaker, and it's a good overall offense, which obviously boosts the floor. And we expect it to be an offense that is better with Deshaun Watson continuing to work his way through a normal offseason. He's going to get a normal training camp. He's not going to be he's not going to have to be or he's not going to have to stay away from the facility over the course of a suspension. This is going to be a normal offseason for the Browns offense. That should only improve their chances of being good. That helps Nick Chubb. Plus more scoring opportunities. I don't need to tell you what that does for a running back's potential fantasy output. Patrick, I'm happy to please. Surf, I see your question. What's going on, Surf? Yeah, I guess just need some context. What's the cost of each of these guys? Is it super flex? Is it full PPR? Is it half PPR? Give me some details about the league. That'll help out of context. Because you're talking about top flight options with all of these names. So let me know what the league format is. Let me know what the league scoring is, and let me know what each of these guys is. Or is it just an arbitrary? I can pick one. The cost is like somehow your league figured out a way where like it's not correlated to draft picks or something like that. So give me some context and we can officially give you the answer. And we'll keep it moving. So Nick Chubb, RB5. I'll caveat, if Saquon gets a deal done with the Giants between now and week 1, I probably bump Saquon up over Nick Chubb by 1 spot, because while Chubb is an adequate pass catcher, Saquon is in that upper echelon and is probably going to be asked to do it again at a high level in 2023, because once again, the Giants' receiving core as a whole is pretty lackluster. They traded for Darren Waller. Whoop-de-doo. Saquon should continue to get a significant number of looks in the form of targets if they can come to a deal. Because that is currently in limbo, because that situation is currently in flux, I do have Nick Chubb as my RB5. I would probably flip-flop Nick Chubb and Saquon if we get some good news from Saquon as far as him getting a new contract. Of course, we push Saquon down if it starts to look pessimistic as we move through training camp and the preseason. Okay, sir. So it's one quarterback, full PPR, and you figured out a way. It's like, so it's like an arbitrary, I'm just keeping this guy. There's nothing tied to the cost to keep them. In the form of like draft picks or whatever. I love Jalen Hurts. I have him as my QB1 overall this year, but I do think I would. This would be a scenario. This would be a situation where I think I would keep Eckler. In full PPR, yeah, he might not catch 100 balls again, but even if he still just catches 75, you're feeling fine. You sleep well at night in full PPR there. I expect the Chargers offense to bounce back this year. They were never healthy together at any point last year, and that includes Justin Herbert. So, remember, he suffered that rib injury on Thursday Night Football in Week 2 against the Chiefs, and it hampered him for like most of the first half of the season. Hence, all of the checking down to Eckler. That's not going to be the case this year, but I'll keep saying it. I like the acquisition of Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator for the Chargers. And under Moore in Dallas, the Cowboys running backs always had success from a fantasy perspective. There's no reason to believe Eckler can't continue that trend. He's a first-round pick regardless. He has the highest ADP of these 3 guys. For me, it would be Eckler. If you want to take Hurts, I just saw you said Hurts is your current decision. Look, he's the safest quarterback on the board. He's safer. Yes, proof is in the pudding, or you can go back to Tuesday's stream if you want to hear my thoughts. The proof is in the pudding. Jalen Hurts is the safest quarterback of all quarterbacks. He's safer than Josh Allen on a per-game basis. He's safer than Patrick Mahomes on a per-game basis. He finishes as a top 5 quarterback 60% of the time. That is incredible. I understand you want to take Hurts, or if you want to take Hurts. Eckler's ADP is about 10 spots higher, 8 to 9 spots higher, which is an indication of his value in one quarterback leagues, especially in full PPR. I'll take Eckler. That would be my choice. As you guys know, or if there's anybody in here who's new, of course, going to continue through the rankings, but I'm always happy to take questions in the chat. We can always break for just some discourse, for some dialogue. Y'all know I'm always happy to do that and figure things out with y'all. So I can break for that as well. What's going on, Nemo? Good to see you, bro. So Christian McCaffrey 1, Bijan Robinson 2, Austin Eckler 3, Jonathan Taylor 4, who is the guy that I'm pumping. Like, he's the guy where it's like, draft that dude. Taylor 4, Nick Chubb 5. Saquon Barkley is my 6th overall running back. Again, I will probably flip flop Saquon and Nick Chubb if we get positive news for Saquon as far as getting a new contract. While that is in limbo, I do have optimism that it gets done. I think I have more optimism that it gets done with Saquon than I do with Josh Jacobs, just because the Giants made the playoffs last year, won a playoff game. Saquon was the catalyst for that offense. I know they paid Daniel Jones, but let's be real. Let's go look back at the production, see why they were worth a damn on offense to begin with. It was Saquon Barkley. I think they eventually come to an agreement. And while Saquon is reportedly disgruntled, or he seems to be upset, he has also been on record saying he doesn't want to reset the market. It feels like they are a little bit closer than Saquon and the Giants are than, say, Josh Jacobs and the Raiders are. So that's why I'm fine with leaving Saquon Barkley at 6 for the 2023 season. It should continue to be a better offense in New York. Second year under Brian Daboll, who I think most can agree is a pretty good coach. He seems to know what he's doing. Got the Giants to the playoffs last year and won a road game in the playoffs. So that worked out nicely for them. Saquon finished with 295 carries last year for over 1,300 yards. So almost picked up 300 total carries, just missed it by 5. Also had 57 catches last year, which was second in his career to the freaking 91 that he caught in 2018. I don't think he's ever going to replicate that again, but Saquon is a threat to catch 65 balls any given year, as far as I'm concerned. I know he's only done that once in his rookie year, but you got to factor in he's missed a lot of time due to injury prior to 2022. He also had 0 receiving touchdowns last year. So by nature of the beast, you would expect some positive regression to the mean there, and maybe he gets a couple more this year. So 300 carry, 50 catch upside. Yeah, I mean that should be a guy that's regularly ranked in the top 5. I put him at 6. The offense holds him back slightly just because the offensive line is still a work in progress. Andrew Thomas has developed into an excellent left tackle. Make no mistake. The rest of that line needs a little bit of work, but maybe that means Saquon continues to catch a bunch of screens. They dump it off to him, protect the offensive line a little bit, get the ball out quickly, get it to your best player, and let him do his thing. Or at least that should be the thought process. Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard's coming back from a torn ACL. I mean, outside of Darren Waller, and they still have and Wan'Dale Robinson, excuse me. I mean, they got a bunch of slot receivers, which that's just, where do you put all these guys on all at once anyway? They traded for Darren Waller. Should be an improvement to the overall passing game, but this offense continues to run through Saquon Barkley, should continue to run through Saquon Barkley. And while teams can key on that, he's proven when healthy that might not necessarily matter. Especially when you're getting 350 touch volume. Averaged 4.4 yards a carry last year. So, nothing outrageously spectacular, but still decent. That's pretty good. 4.4 yards a carry is pretty good. Almost 6 yards a catch. Not bad. But like, again, when you're doing it with volume, when you catch 57 out of the backfield, I mean, that's pretty good. You don't care if they're going for short gains. It's the value in the target in and of itself. It's well known at this point in half PPR scoring. A target is 2.5 times more valuable than a carry. And that's not even having to catch the ball. That's just the target itself. because of the potential the player can do with that one play. Upper echelon pass catcher out of the backfield. He's a better pass catcher than Nick Chubb. He's a better pass catcher than Jonathan Taylor, but he's not as good of a he's or I shouldn't say he's not as good. Um, you believe in those guys more as pure runners. Saquon, you believe in a little bit more as an upper echelon pass catcher. I guess it's fair to say he's an elite pass catcher since he does have a 90 catch season. It hasn't been happened since 2018, and that was with an entirely different offense. These conclusions where it's kind of like, oh yeah, he's really, really good, but he's not like he hasn't done it at an elite level for 5 years, but he's also really good in this area, but these guys are slightly better. These are all the like, well, kind of again caveats as far as like why I have him at RB6 instead of RB4 or 5. But still only 26 years old. Saquon remains in his prime for at least another couple seasons. Assuming a contract comes to fruition, you expect top 5 production. Number 7. This is another guy where I'm like, do I have him too low? I feel like I'm getting into the range where there are some guys that I'm being a little bit disrespectful to, but we got to come into each season with a fresh set of eyes, right? It's all about what you expect could happen. Less so on. Oh well, he did this last year, so hopefully he can just do that again. No, the situation has changed. The landscape has changed. I almost feel like I'm too low on this guy, but it's hard to put him ahead of any of the other names. That being said, if I don't get Jonathan Taylor in the middle of the second round, let's say I have a pick a couple spots later in the back half of the second round, the guy who I am hammering every single time, the guy who I am saying yes to, swiping right on, drafting, whatever you want to say, at the back half of the second round is Tony Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott is gone. That's a ton of rushing potential added to Tony Pollard's playmaker potential skill set. We already know that he's an upper echelon pass catcher out of the backfield, big time dynamic playmaker. Obviously, concerns about the injury that he suffered against the 49ers in the divisional round playoff. It was a pretty gruesome looking injury, but it wasn't a tear. It wasn't a tendon tear. It was a broken bone. Those things tend to look gruesome because they are, and they're painful. You broke a bone in your body. It's gonna look gnarly, right? Like tears, ACL tears, MCL tears. They're harder to identify, right? You see a broken bone when it happens. They look like gnarly injuries. They look like really bad injuries. They look like injuries to be legitimately concerned about. And obviously, you hope the player is healthy as a result. You hope he comes back and he's 100%. We hope this with all players who suffer an injury of some kind. By all accounts, he's going to be ready for training camp. And outside of drafting Deuce Vaughn in the 6th round, who is 5'5", and I'm not trying to demean Deuce Vaughn, just pointing out that it would really be an outlier for a guy of that size to be a regular contributor for an NFL offense. We're not rooting against it. We're not rooting against anybody, but 5'5" it's tough. It's tough. 6th round draft capital on top of that, not a heavy investment. They have not otherwise replaced Zeke. They're down to Tony Pollard. I mentioned Deuce Vaughn, and the guy who's, I guess, the intriguing backup here is Malik Davis. There's not much else in this backfield. I guess they could still add to it, right? They could still bring somebody else in. It feels like it would be a little bit redundant, but Leonard Fournette is out there still. Kareem Hunt is out there still. Feels like if you're going to give one of those guys a look, then maybe you just bring back Zeke from a familiarity perspective. But so far, all three remain free agents. Daryl Henderson is still out there. I'm sure there's a name or two that I'm not thinking of, that could be in line for a potential role somewhere. Melvin Gordon, I guess. I don't know that he really has anything left in the tank. Uh, and the fumble issues he had that last year is going to work heavily against him at this stage of his career. Point being, whether they bring in a vet at this point or not, Tony Pollard is going to probably get significant workload in an offense that wants to run the ball. Again, feel free to go back to my Tuesday stream where I talked about the quarterbacks and how I have Dak Prescott as a low-end QB1, but it's kind of with some pessimism because the Cowboys have been forthcoming that they want to run the ball more in 2023. Mike McCarthy has said, I don't want to be the flashiest offense that scores a ton of points. I want to win the game. All right, whatever, dude. You win by passing. But whatever. I'm not an NFL coach. What do I know? If they want to run the ball, who are they going to give it to? Tony Pollard. The Dallas Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer as offensive coordinator. I don't think he's ever had an offense in the top half of passing in the league when it's all said and done. So they are going to run. They're going to run, and then they're going to run some more. And you figure Tony Pollard is also a threat to catch a significant number of passes out of the backfield. He's not, he's 6 feet tall, 210 pounds. So he's certainly stout enough for the job. He's not the biggest bruiser of all time. So maybe he's not that short yardage dude, but I mean, got 9 touchdowns on the ground last year. 193 carries, nothing to be concerned about there from a workload perspective. 39 receptions. You got to imagine that one's got a chance to go higher. That's his career high. It actually tied a career high from 2021, 39 catches. This is a scenario where it's like, well, Ezekiel Elliott is gone. He should probably catch more. And I know they added Brandon Cooks. Michael Gallup is now 2 years removed from the torn ACL. So you figure these guys are going to be bigger contributors in the passing game than what Dallas had to work with last year. But they did, on top of losing Ezekiel Elliott, they also lost Dalton Schultz. These are a lot of short and intermediate throws that you now figure have a good chance of going to Pollard. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb soaks up a little bit more production, but, that's not what the topic of conversation is. Tony Pollard has a chance. I don't know if he hits 350 touches, but he should go over 300. You can draft a guy with guaranteed RB1 upside in the back half of the second round. Pull the trigger on Tony Pollard in your drafts. I forgot about Dalvin Cook. How could I forget about Dalvin Cook? Yeah, he's available too. And the Cowboys do have cap space. So that is possible. Nevertheless, we're naming a bunch of guys who are 28 years old with significant wear and tear at this point. Significant mileage. You're going to give it to the younger guy who's in his prime, who's a bigger time playmaker at this point in his career. And I know Dalvin Cook had a good season last year. Hats off to him. I was happy to see him finish 17 games. I think he played all 17 games. I think that was also the first time in his career that he did that. And he's got that shoulder separation issue that, oh man, once he re-injures it, you worry about the amount of time that he misses. Edwin Porras, injury analyst for Fantasy Points, regularly says with something like a shoulder separation, each subsequent time it happens, it's worse than the last time. Pretty much no matter what. If you separate your shoulder, for the first time maybe you're out a week. The second time maybe you're out 2 weeks. The third time maybe you're out 3 weeks. And I think that's where we're at with Dalvin Cook. It's like a shoulder separate, and I'm saying 1 week, 2 week, 3 week. It might be more like 4 to 6 weeks. Now, if it happens for the fourth or fifth time, I mean, how long is it going to take for a 28-year-old running back to rehab a separated shoulder that has been separated 5 times at the NFL level? It's going to be tough. All this to say, in this hypothetical scenario where the Cowboys bring in a veteran running back, I don't care. In fact, I kind of hope it happens, and I kind of hope it pushes Tony Pollard's ADP down to the third round because I will have 50% exposure to Tony Pollard. I'm all in at his ADP now. I'd be even more all in if people got scared off of him because Dallas brings somebody into their backfield and his ADP falls 5 or 6 spots. I would be even more in. Tony Pollard at 7 for me. I think the potential workload that he absorbs from Ezekiel Elliott's release catapults him uh, into the top 5 upside conversation. And at like 21, 22 overall, I'm taking that all day long. Number 8. Again, I feel like I'm being disrespectful to some veterans. But I gotta turn to the younger legs, right? The younger, fresher legs with less wear and tear on them. And it's a similar situation to Tony Pollard, where at least as of right now, there's not really anything else in this backfield. Ramondre Stevenson, despite whatever we expect is going to happen with the New England Patriots, does Mac Jones take a step forward? What's this offense look like now that Bill O'Brien is back in the mix, an actual offensive coordinator? Maybe that actually helps, I guess. To that point, running back is a youth movement every single year. You want to turn to the younger guys with the fresh legs. I'll take Ramondre Stevenson as my number 8 running back overall. 210 carries last year. That was a season where Damian Harris was still with the Patriots. I think he missed some time due to injury, but he was still very much involved. Am I correct in saying that? Did Damian Harris miss like a game or two? Maybe more last year. I gotta make sure that that's accurate. Regardless, still only had 106 carries last year. Harris did. That was in 11 games. Yeah, he missed 6 games. Missed 6 games due to injury. Regardless, he's now out of the picture. He's in Buffalo. Ramondre picked up 210 carries last year. You figure that number is going to tick up. 69 very nice receptions for Ramondre Stevenson last year. So only 279 total touches. Under 300. Zero concern as far as a significant workload last year. I mean, that it's big. It's a big time it's a big time number, but it's not over that 300 touch threshold. He should hit that this year, though. He should hit that this year. I agree, Nemo. I think he's the guy. He's the guy in the third. You have to spend a pick at the top of the third to get him, and I've seen him go as high as the late second round. There are people who are privy to Ramondre Stevenson and expect big things from him this year, and rightfully so. Patriots have a real offensive coordinator this year with Bill O'Brien. You expect Mac Jones to take some step forward in his third year, and therefore you expect this offense to be a little bit better. And I mean, the pass catchers are Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki. They just signed Devontae Parker to a 3-year deal worth up to $33 million. Okay. DeAndre Hopkins is reportedly still rumored to potentially be signing there. Would give this offense a boost. And then they've got guys like Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong and Ty Montgomery behind Ramondre on the depth chart. We'll see what those names can provide. And of course, we expect Bill Belichick to utilize at least one or two of those guys over the course of the season. But this has been about as clear cut of a Patriots backfield as we've seen in a while, as far as, okay, who is there a clear cut guy in this offense? And there is. Ramondre is multiple tier levels above the rest of the guys in the Patriots backfield. He's probably their best weapon overall in the offense. And when I say probably, now that I think about it, he definitely is the best overall weapon in that offense. Catching 69 passes last year, I mean, that's a high number. But when you look at the pass catching options that New England has, especially when you consider Juju Smith-Schuster is already dealing, or not already, he's still dealing with lingering knee issues that he was dealing with last year when he was still in Kansas City. He sat out all of OTAs. Okay, fine. We're not worried about that. But this is a new offense. It's a new playbook. There's a bunch of new things to learn all over again for Juju as he starts over with yet another offense, his third in 3 years. So he's behind the eight ball as far as getting valuable playing time with the first team offense when you miss time in OTAs with your first year with the team. And dealing with the knee injury, that's just bad vibes. A knee injury that stems from last year, I don't feel good about that. This offense needs to run through Ramondre Stevenson the way the Giants offense runs through Saquon Barkley, as far as I'm concerned. I would expect 350 touches. Same deal as Tony Pollard. I don't care if the Patriots at this point bring a veteran running back in. I don't care if they bring in Leonard Fournette. I don't care if they bring in Kareem Hunt. I don't care if they bring in Dalvin Cook or Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know that they will. I don't think that they will. But even if they do, any of those names, I don't care. Ramondre remains a guy with ridiculous upside. A guy that you can get at the top of the third round. Ramondre Stevenson is my RB8. My RB9. I don't have it. It's kind of like the Austin Eckler situation. I don't have a ton of shares of him, but this is a respect thing at this point, and a guy who, at this point in his career, you're kind of just like, we're taking it 1 year at a time, and it's just like, all right, if he did it last year, then I might as well be back in this year. I doubted him for years in a row and was wrong to do so. I still feel like I'm doubting him, putting him all the way down at RB9. But this is where I have Derrick Henry. I don't have a ton of shares of him. Again, he's going in the same range as Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson, who I just prefer. I prefer their workloads. I prefer that they're a little bit more promising, or a little bit more prevalent as pass catchers. And again, with Derrick Henry, I know he's an outlier. I know he's the beast of beasts when it comes to running backs, but I mean, he's 50 carries away from 1,800 career carries. And that has historically been the threshold where running backs eventually kind of start to fall off. Historically. That doesn't automatically mean that Derrick Henry is subject to that, but the career workload at this point, plus the fact that I just don't think the Titans offense is going to be very good, gives me some pause on Derrick Henry, but out of respect for what he has done, and honestly, what you probably still expect him to do, at least to some degree, I still have to list him as an RB1. It's a low-end RB1. Down at RB9. I don't have many shares just because I have so much Ramondre Stevenson and Tony Pollard just ahead of him. But another 349 carries last year, over 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns. The man just churns out RB1 production every single year. Actually had a career high by far last year with 33 catches. He had never had more than 19 in a season prior to that, so maybe we don't expect 33 again. Every year with this guy, man, I'm telling you. Every year I'm like, well, he carried it for 600. He carried it 600 times last year and 500 the year before that. At some point, I'm exaggerating a little bit, by the way, but like at some point, this workload's going to catch up to him, and then he like does the same thing again every single year. I know he missed time in 2021. He only played half the season. Still had 219 carries in 8 games. It's just, if that man is out there, if Derrick Henry is on the football field and from start to finish makes it through a game, the odds that he touched the ball 25 times are high. Derrick Henry was put on this earth to carry the football and to crush you while doing it. So it's a combination of things. There are some younger running backs, again, with ADPs just ahead of his that I like a little bit more, that I feel a little bit safer about. But I mean, he's all reliable at this point, right? Derrick Henry's all reliable. You just know he's going to be there at the end of the day. If he's healthy, if he makes, you have no choice, even in his advanced age, advanced by running back, right, for running back purposes. If he's out there, if he's playing in the game, it's just like ho hum. I'm going to look at the box score and I'm going to see he got it 26, 27, 28 times, with more than a few times where he gets it 30 plus. And so what, and he can come through on volume, and two, still pretty good with the, from a per touch perspective. 4.4 yards per carry last year. Not tops in the league, and certainly not as, not the best he's ever done by his lofty standards. But I mean, he's also 29 at this point. He's an older running back. And he averages fewest yards per game in 4 seasons. So I mean, it's coming. This is why I have a little bit of concern. It's a respect thing. It's a respect thing as far as ranking Henry as an RB1, but man, like the day is gonna come where he does hit the wall. And that's not an indictment on Derrick Henry. It's just that old saying that y'all know at this point, is that Father Time is undefeated. He gets you eventually. And while I'm not predicting that it happens for Derrick Henry this year, it's just each season at this point, with the workload that he has amassed, it's getting closer. And the proverbial the threshold that historically has been proof of when a running back falls off is that 1800 career carry threshold. Derrick Henry currently sits at 1,750 carries. So he's 50 carries away from 1,800 for his career. It's likely he hits that number by the third week of the season at the latest. That being said, I'll put Derrick Henry as the overall RB9. I've doubted him in the past, and every single year he's proven me wrong. So we continue to list him as an RB1. He'll have high upside RB1 weeks here and there. What gives me pause is the advanced age, the career wear and tear. And it's probably not going to be a very good Titans offense overall. Might not be a good team in general. Might honestly behoove the Titans to try to tank because the rest of I mean, I don't know what their future looks like, but I know that the rest of their division includes Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. And while I've liked Ryan Tannehill, pretty good quarterback. That's not or pretty good quarterback, has had some really good years with the Titans. That's not a team that's not a team that, as currently constructed, probably can compete with the Jaguars. Go put yourself in the Caleb Williams running for next year. But what do I know? I have Derrick Henry at 9. At number 10, at this point, it feels like complete disrespect because I think he was the RB3 overall last year. But the RB10 for the 2023 season, this is where I have Josh Jacobs. And at this point, it's a respect thing. Now, Jacobs, going back to the concerns that I voiced at the top of the rankings when I talked about a caveat with running backs and previous workload being something that gives me pause. It's not just because Jacobs is currently in a contract dispute why I have him all the way down at 10 as opposed to 6 or 7. The contract dispute is concerning. Right now, the early reports, and while it's too early to panic, the early reports are it's possible that Josh Jacobs holds out not just into training camp, but through the preseason and potentially into the start of the regular season. It's possible this happens. On top of that, again, it's probably not going to be a very good offense. Now, Josh Jacobs came through big time last year on an offense that ultimately struggled, but at least they still had Derek Carr for, well, the first 13 or 14 games of the season before he got benched. So maybe that's not even a ringing endorsement for last season's Raiders offense. But the other thing that's on top of this is Josh Jacobs accumulated 393 touches last year. He fell 7 shy of 400 overall. 340 carries, 1,653 yards, both outrageously excellent numbers. 12 total touchdowns. 53 catches for 400 yards. So, I mean, 2,000 yards in a season on 393 total touches, 7 total away from 400, and 340 of them were carries. Now, that's a number where you look at it, especially because he hasn't come close to hitting that number prior in any season prior in his career. I think the closest he got was around 300 touches his second year. Yeah. Josh Jacobs in his rookie year in 2019, 262 combined carries and catches. In 2020, he just went over 300, looks like 306. Not one that ultimately gives you a ton of pause. In 2021, about 1,200, I'm looking at the yards, 1,200 yards, but less than 280 touches, 217 carries, 54 catches. This past year, 2022, 340. The highest number of carries he's received in his short NFL career by 70 carries. And then a 53 catch season that puts him damn near close to 400. That's a huge workload, man. And that is the type of workload that should give you a little bit of pause season over season from one to the next. Josh Jacobs is still only 25. He's not old. He's in his prime. So that can give you a little bit of breathing room if you're a Josh Jacobs believer. But I mean, It wasn't just a couple of years ago where we saw Christian McCaffrey as a 25-year-old running back coming off a 400 touch season, and he missed like 13 games that year, maybe more. At that point, when you accumulate a workload like that, it's not about age. It's about your body sustained a significant workload last year, and it's difficult to duplicate that. It's really hard to duplicate that. I want to believe in Josh Jacobs. I personally think he's in the upper echelon of just he's in the conversation of best pure runner in the NFL. Nick Chubb is the guy in that category, but Josh Jacobs is in that conversation. We have to give him that. And so that's what maintains him as interesting. He could be a guy like Derrick Henry who bucks the trend of being concerned about heavy workloads, but also Derrick Henry was playing in better Titans offenses when he was racking up 400 touches for like 4 years in a row than what Josh Jacobs is probably going to play in with the Raiders offense this year. I don't even know if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy enough to suit up week 1. Who the hell are they going to turn to? Aiden O'Connell? Like, we're in dire straits as far as like feeling good about the Raiders offense as a whole. So it's kind of like the Derrick Henry conversation. I guess I'll say this as it pertains to Josh Jacobs. And I'm kind of saying this to myself as well. I guess there's fair reasons to doubt him, but I've been saying for 5 years now there looked like on paper fair reasons to doubt Derrick Henry. Again, Derrick Henry has put together a Hall of Fame resume. Josh Jacobs isn't there yet. Derrick Henry played on slightly better offenses, or better offenses than what we expect Jacobs to play with on this year with Vegas. Um, but the production last year was stellar. If the Raiders and Jacobs can come to some form of an agreement, which kind of feels pessimistic right now, just based on the energy we're getting from the situation. Josh Jacobs has been adamant, not adamant, but he has spoken up on social media a couple of times. It's not hard to see where he stands as far as what's expected of the organization and what he hopes to get paid. And it doesn't look like the Raiders are willing to come close to that number. If they can come to an agreement, Josh Jacobs is a layup for another 350 touches. Mostly because the Raiders need it. I know they still have Devontae Adams, who is still that dude. But what about the rest of the offense? I know they signed Jacoby Myers. Okay, fine. It's just who's going to be the quarterback? And if it's Aiden O'Connell because Jimmy Garoppolo isn't ready, isn't healthy, then yeah, that's going to be bad vibes all the way around. So there are definitely some very real, multiple legitimate concerns with Josh Jacobs. That being said, you have to have him ranked as a top 10 running back, considering what he did last season, finishing as the RB3 overall. To bring it home, the last 2 of the top 12 running backs, again, I've gone through the top 10. I've got 11 and 12 here, and then we'll wrap for the day. Early next week, I was thinking it would be Tuesday, but it is a holiday. So TBD on if we hold it Tuesday or if we hold it another day in the week. We'll finish off the quarterback rankings. We'll finish up quarterbacks 13 to 24. and then we'll move as we move through the summer. Running backs 13 to 24, and then of course we'll get into the wide receivers and tight ends. I am actually off next Thursday. There will be no stream next Thursday. I do have a nice little vacation lined up that I'm very much looking forward to. A nice little long weekend. So that'll be fun, and I will be out of town. So no live stream next Thursday, but can still go on Tuesday on the holiday. Even if some of you guys might be at some 4th of July parties, we'll get that sorted out. So quarterback rankings 13 to 24 sometime early next week. So you can be on the lookout for that. Tentatively, I'll still hold it on Tuesday, even though it's a holiday. We'll see. But to bring it home, running backs 11 and 12. My running back 11 is a guy whose ADP is way depreciated. And that's why I have him down here at RB11. But I'll be completely honest. I would take him over. I think this might be a little bold, but I'm pretty sure I would take him over Josh Jacobs, and I'm pretty sure I would take him over Derrick Henry. He hasn't, let me caveat this, he hasn't been very good from like a pure metrics perspective. By every account, by every statistic, Najee Harris has struggled as a runner at the NFL level. But I have Najee Harris as my RB11. He's one of my biggest targeted players in best ball drafts. I think I have over 20% exposure to him. I think I have like 22, 23% exposure to Najee Harris. I'm drafting him a fifth of the time. And I do a lot of drafts. So that's a higher number than maybe it sounds like initially. Because I can get him in the 4th round. And at cost, I like him better than some of the running backs that are going 10 spots ahead of him. I don't know definitively if Najee Harris is actually, and I mean no disrespect here, again, just the proof is in the advanced metrics. I don't know definitively if Najee Harris is actually a good NFL running back. But what I do know is for all of the Jaylen Warren love that is out there, the Steelers, not too long ago, made Najee Harris a 1st-round pick and proceeded to give him over 400 touches as a rookie. And the reason he probably didn't get more was because, you guessed it, look, again, like clockwork, big workload. He went into last training camp, hurt, not healthy. He was dealing with the foot injury, remember? Hampered his preseason, hampered his regular season, never really was able to get it going. Lost work to Jaylen Warren in the second half of the season when it was obvious he couldn't be as effective as he was the season prior. And he lost a lot of production in the form of dump-offs from Ben Roethlisberger, who was a noodle arm, dead quarterback his last season in the league, which was Najee's rookie year. Now it's Kenny Pickett. So how many targets Najee receives is still a little up in the air. He didn't get that volume that he enjoyed with Ben Roethlisberger. But now he can be drafted in the 4th round, and you expect him to be a bell cow in a Steelers offense that under Mike Tomlin historically likes to have bell cow running backs. They did it with Najee Harris. They've done it in the past throughout Mike Tomlin's tenure. Got to imagine, like with Le'Veon Bell, got to imagine we go back to the well here with Najee Harris. They do the same thing now that he is healthy, and you can get him in the 4th round. It's got an ADP of around 37 overall, so end of the 3rd in 12-team drafts. That's a price I'm willing to pay, considering we were spending late 1st, early 2nd round picks on Najee Harris in redraft leagues just last year. The Steelers addressed their offensive line, so that should be an improvement. They were a good offense overall in the second half of the season last year, so obviously we're hoping for a little bit of momentum carryover. But with second year Kenny Pickett hopefully taking another step forward, they've got good pieces in this offense with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth. This should be a decent offense. And again, they addressed offensive line. So overall, it should be better. And with Najee coming into the offseason healthy, coming in training camp healthy, at that reduced cost, all the time, man. Draft it all the time, as frequently as you possibly can. Najee Harris, honestly, for me, should be your pseudo modified zero RB target if you go wide receiver heavy to start your drafts this year. Najee presents an opportunity for you to open up your draft, wide receiver, and still get a dude with bell cow projections at the end of the third, top of the fourth round. Again, and I'm not trying to be rude, I don't know if Najee is actually good because you look at any chart, you look at any graph, right? Rushing yards over expected, all of those, these the advanced analytic numbers. Najee's Najee's always at the bottom. It's not great. He's always at the bottom. Like rushing yards over expected are not good, which means he's not creating his own yards. He's not creating plays, doing playmaking things, so to speak. He's heavily reliant on the scheme and the play call and the play of the offensive line itself more than anything else. But we expect all of that to be better in Pittsburgh this year. So give me Najee at his reduced cost. I know people are hammering Jaylen Warren in drafts as a counter who believe that Najee isn't any good. I just can't ignore the draft capital. He's still only like 24, 25 years old. I got to imagine he goes back into that 300, 320, 330 range as far as touches for the 2023 season. So I'm definitely playing with a little bit of fire because I do have a lot of shares of Najee Harris. And I did just say some things where it's like, maybe this gives me some pause. But the cost plus the expected opportunity plus the draft capital invested in him by the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm buying Najee. I'm buying Najee at an ADP of around 37-ish. And I would have him higher above guys like Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs if his ADP wasn't so depreciated. That being said, I do prefer having Najee Harris to those guys. Don't draft him where those guys are drafting. Roll the dice on being able to get him later by getting a better, getting a guy with a higher ADP in that spot that you feel good about. Roll the dice later. Hope he falls to you. I've seen him fall to the middle of the fourth round. It's not inconceivable. To bring it home, the RB12 for the 2023 season and the last of the RB1s for my 2023 rankings, at least as of today, June 29th. This one was difficult. I really wanted to put a guy like Aaron Jones here as a guy who's a huge Aaron Jones fan and a guy who respects Aaron Jones for what he's done so far in his career, which is just put up RB1 season after RB1 season after RB1 season. But I understand the concern that there's the loss of Aaron Rodgers potentially downgrades that offense to the point where we can't rank Aaron Jones as an RB1 anymore. He was the guy I really wanted to put here. I also thought about Kenneth Walker here, but he's down a couple of spots because of the acquisition of Zach Charbonnet. I still believe big time in Kenneth Walker, but I just quite couldn't put him in as a low end RB1 here. Those guys are at the top of my RB2 list. Spoiler alert. And then, of course, there's other guys in here like Travis Etienne and Jahmyr Gibbs that you think about dropping into the top 12. And maybe Gibbs has that upside. I don't know that Etienne necessarily does. But for me, they just missed the cut. Because there's another guy here. Some question marks. Suffered a torn ACL last year. Missed a lot of time. But by all accounts, the injury was a clean tear. There was nothing additional that happened with the injury. There was no complications with the injury as far as how complex it got. There weren't multiple ligaments torn. So it sounds like the road to recovery should be a cleaner one, a smoother one. Therefore, I do have some confidence in this guy, though it is just a year removed from the ACL tear. Brees Hall rounds out my RB1s for the 2023 season. The New York Jets expected RB1 finishes off my RB1 rankings for the 2023 season. And to that point about Aaron Jones losing Aaron Rodgers, Brees Hall gains Aaron Rodgers. I don't know how much left Aaron Rodgers has in the tank, but if anything else, it feels like you can still roll the dice on his running back for at least one more season, because Aaron Rodgers' running backs have had a lot of success from a fantasy perspective. Again, there is definitely some fair reason to have some concern here with the injury. One that usually takes more than a year to bounce back from as far as return to form. But I mean, come on. In the 7 games that he played, he only started 2 of them, but he obviously became the guy very quickly for the Jets. 80 carries in 7 games for 463 yards. That's almost 6 yards a carry. 19 catches for 218 yards. That's 11 and a half yards per catch. I mean, the production is there, man. The explosive plays are there. The big play ability, the game breaking, game wrecking ability is there. We saw that last year with him. Broke off long runs, broke off a 60-yard run, broke off almost an 80-yard catch and run. 5 total touchdowns in just 7 games. He was well on his way to a big-time RB1 finish for fantasy purposes. Obviously, the ACL brought an end to that, unfortunately. And generally speaking, with torn ACLs, it's smart to wait not the year after they bounce back, but 2 years after. The reason I'm willing to break that rule is he's still only just 21 years old. Youth and everything that comes with that is very much on Brees Hall's side. And again, it's common knowledge at this point, or it's public information at this point. The tear was quote unquote a clean tear. And obviously that was terrible news at the time of the injury, but the saving grace with Brees Hall with that type of news is that the recovery process is faster than if it was a more complicated injury. He didn't tear additional ligaments. He didn't lose the LCL or the MCL. He didn't require major knee reconstruction as a result of the injury. You feel good about Brees from a perspective of being able to get back into the field and return to form faster than maybe the average player who tears their ACL when you factor in age and severity of the injury. Brees's was, relative to other ACL tears, on the less severe side. So you feel a little better about it. They add Aaron Rodgers. This offense expects to be good. Garrett Wilson. They sign Alan Lazard. They bring in Mecole Hardman. They drafted Izzy Abanikanda to ideally give that backfield some fresh legs here and there to spell Brees when he needs a rest, when he needs a break. Tight ends are kind of, they're uninspiring, but Ty Conklin had a decent year last year. He's a pretty good player. They still have CJ Uzoma for whatever it's worth. This is an offense that you expect to be good. And then obviously Aaron Rodgers, all the pressure is on for this offense to perform. Brees should be a big part of it. I didn't mention Michael Carter. I'm not sure if he he might be falling out of favor given the fact that they drafted Izzy Abanikanda, and there were some games last year without Brees Hall where Carter really struggled. He's still there for whatever it's worth. Regardless, this offense should be good. Brees Hall should be in a good situation as far as his recovery from this injury. I have him listed as an RB12. He would be at least 5 spots higher if he finished the season healthy last year, and he might even be closer to the top 3 or 4 conversation had the injury not occurred. So I think it's fair to put him at the RB12. Those are modest expectations for a guy that, when healthy, we're going to have bigger expectations for. And in an Aaron Rodgers-led offense, Brees Hall should produce at a high level. Maybe we have to wait until, say, the second half of the season. Maybe you got to take your lumps with Brees Hall for the first half of 2023 or the first chunk of 2023. But fresh legs, minimal wear and tear. Relative to the severity of the injury, it's not as bad as some others. These are all factors when you pool it all together. Young player, clean break, not a lot of wear and tear. Sometimes there are exceptions to the norm, right? A 27-year-old player tearing their ACL is not the same as a 21-year-old player tearing their ACL. It's just not. The difference, simple math. The difference is 6 years in this random example. It's fair to have some pause about a guy coming off of an ACL tear the year immediately after it occurs. The second year following an injury like that is usually the one where you can feel better about the player returns to full form, 100% return to form. There are outliers to every rule. This feels like one of them. Patrick, we're in lockstep, bro. Love to see it. We're gonna have some good teams this year. I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones. There are some good, well constructed rosters this year. I can feel it. So, those are my top 12. And again, I can go back. I'll take the weekend to slice these up, slice up the quarterback stream, slice up this running back stream, so you can get some thoughts on the individual player at each position that I have them, or each ranking that I have them. But one more time, Christian McCaffrey number 1, Bijan Robinson number 2, Austin Eckler number 3, Jonathan Taylor number 4, Nick Chubb number 5, Saquon Barkley's at 6, Tony Pollard at 7, Ramondre Stevenson at 8, Derrick Henry at 9. Josh Jacobs at 10, Najee Harris at 11, Brees Hall at 12. Those are my RB rankings for the 2023 season. Some guys, just because I have them higher in the rankings, doesn't mean I'm necessarily targeting them over guys in, lower in the rankings. It's a matter of opportunity cost. Some of it is a respect thing to veterans. But that doesn't mean you end up with a guy. That doesn't mean you end up with the RB9 if it makes more sense to take the wide receiver 12 or 13 if you think you can get the RB10 10 spots later. It's all about roster construction, baby. But that being said, I do want to make sure I throw respect to the veterans as far as making sure that they sneak into the top 12. Aaron Jones is the guy who just misses the cut. One of my favorite players of all time. There's just going to be question marks about that Packers offense. I'll probably rank him as my RB 13, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That'll do it for today. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out. Appreciate all of the discourse. Appreciate all of the dialogue. Happy to answer any questions about this. If they come up, you just let me know. You can either comment on this video, hit me in the Discord. Second link in the description of this video. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, feel free to join up. Feel free to ask me questions in there as they come up, whether it's about this or any other fantasy-related topic you guys want to talk about. But that is a wrap for my top 12 rankings. Next week, I think next Tuesday, again, one more time, I will do, even though it's the 4th of July, quarterback rankings for 13 to 24, just to wrap those up. And then we'll move through the running backs and wide receivers as we move later into July. I will be off next Thursday. I do have a vacation coming up, so no stream that day. But I'll make sure to find some time with you guys at the beginning of the week next week to get a live stream in. And I'll try to get some extra content out on the channel as well in the form of slicing up these live streams because I think the people like the rankings. That'll do it for me. Thank you guys again one more time. Enjoy your weekends. Have fun. Stay safe. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.